lighter caramel color.
I can't
So we
see.
start with this really dark brown, and I'm waiting to see it lighten.
No, it's going to be a fun to watch.
Already, there's little crystals forming in there, and every time more crystal forms, it gets lighter and lighter, because the crystals their structure just reflects the light differently. All science. I can feel it. Really? Do you think
Science
so?
makes candy.
It's
I
not
don't
boring.
care.
It's everywhere. Oh, man. Tough people to sell.
Nick, can you feel it getting
How it's
bigger?
very- I can feel it getting thicker.
I don't care. I like candy.
You'll start to
Science
see
is
it's like
too science.
a different consistency as it drifts down.
That sounds like me saying
I find it very
Hold this.
no one would tip it like this. It's much easier to stir when you have like the extra surface. I would also always do kind of this size, maybe a little bit more in a batch. But if you're doing large quantities, the working time for the molds, it just goes quick. So unless you have multiple people that can help spread the candy out, you don't want to go big. You just want to do small bits at a time. As it starts to harden, you can feel it, and you're like, all right, that's enough. And you work it, and whatever's left, you just melt it down again. It's really easy to just keep going and going. And the coolest thing is when you're all the way done, clean up. You add a little water, you bring it back to a boil, back to 219, and you have syrup again, and you put it in a jar and into your fridge. And whatever's left is still syrup. It's just whatever temperature it is that tells you what the liquid is. So you can make syrup at the end of your candy making, and that's your cleanup, and there's no waste. So it's really kind of fun. All right, do you see the color? You see how it's much lighter than when we started?
like caramel.
It does look like caramel, you're right!
That chocolate batter for that cake that had rides in it, so I wasn't allowed to eat the batter.
Do you ever add anything like salt to change the flavor?
You could add salt. I don't think it would do anything to the chemistry. The only thing that I ever add is sometimes if I have an issue with foaming, I'll add a tiny bit of butter, which stops the foaming. I'll show you how much in a second. But after I do that, I just sweep this into the molds. This flat spatula is key, yep. And what you'll notice, if you look, there's ones that are empty or just tiny little bits. If I was making this at home, any of those ones that aren't perfect, I can pop right back into the pot and melt down. So any you just save the ones you love, and the ones that aren't, if you have kids waiting, they don't care. They will eat the imperfect ones as happily as the perfect ones.
If you were making it like that, you would.
It looks like they're hard teeth.
If you were making it, that would show.
Yeah, if I was making this
They look
hard
hard
for
fast.
Yeah,
I actually
that's
would
what she
have to pour it quite, I wouldn't have waited quite as long, because if I have time, it will harden at a slightly less cooled point, and that will give me a little
Literally
more
can
working
see it hardening.
There's a lot of
Unlike
kind of
watching
things that
paint
you
dry,
know
which
what
I've
you're
tried.
doing. But for this, I like it to be really close so I can flop it out quick, and no one cares if they're not perfect, so I don't need the working time as much. But what you'll notice as it's cooling now is you'll see little white flecks, kind of like when you get a calcium deficiency in those fingernail marks. That's kind of what it looks like, the little white spots. Those are the crystals that you can see. And if we let it all the way cool, they would become that light color. They fade into a really light color. All those little white spots.
Are we going to get to eat it?
Everyone can if they want to.
I want one. I do.
Everyone gets to have one, but only one. And this is what I say. If you find yourself addicted after one, we do have some extras for sale out there, but we only give one out for free, so we're getting you all hooked.
So why don't we just stay here for every lesson?
Well, you're still only supposed to have one for the
I know,
whole
I'm being
day. I know you are.
They'll be
Does
coming
everyone
here
see
tomorrow.
those crystals?
Yeah.
So, if we wanted them to look perfect on the other side where there's a design, so if you look on the mold, you see on this big mold how there's like veins in the leaf? If we let this set for like 10 more minutes, all those veins would hold perfectly and they would be really nice and firmed up. But they wouldn't taste any different. So we can either wait 10 minutes before we pop them out, or we could pop them out now and maybe they won't be quite perfect. But
Pop them out now!
Does it help at all if you put them in the fridge like chocolate?
you could put this in the fridge now, sure.
Would it add, like, make moisture from condensation from the rapid temperature?
It really cools so quickly that I've never really needed to. It's nice to have like a couple sets. Like if you're making a bunch of it, it's nice to have a couple sets. But you also like, it's nice to take a break for a second. So you just let it sit and you start boiling your new one down, and then you, like when it seems ready, you pop it, and it's just kind of a nice, easy process. You could put it in the fridge. It wouldn't hurt it at this point to put it in the fridge. Someone asked me about doing it outside so it would cool faster, so it would move it along, which I used to do because I used to do this demo outside. The problem with that is your working time then is like nothing. So I actually recommend inside cool temperatures if you can do it. Like turn your heat down a little, but doing it outside on a cold day actually is really challenging. So for a beginner, I recommend, it's too fast.
And this is just any regular silicone mold?
Yeah, you can get at the candy store, yeah. There's they also have those like clear plastic molds. Those won't do the heat, but I don't
Can I
think those are
take
for
one?
chocolate.
Right.
But this silicone, that's all. And you can get them in any shape. We have these ones. These are bad for maple because they're long and skinny. They tend to break. So I recommend like round shapes, but any shape within that parameter works well. We're all gonna get one, but hang on one second. Let me pop them all out first.